This is the Data Frog SF2000, and let me talk briefly over what is on the outside of this controller. So we have a D-pad, we have an analog stick, we have X, Y, A, B buttons, as well as a select and start button. We have the left and right trigger buttons. Nothing on the back as far as buttons, but we have a fake speaker here, and the actual speaker is right here, as well as a battery casing here that we can remove if we wanted. And on the bottom we have an on and off switch, as well as a Type-C charger, an SD card slot, specifically a micro SD card, headphone jack, a way to plug into our TV, which is really interesting, and a volume slider. So let's turn this thing on and show you what it can do. So first up, it opens with MAME, and I'll show you what some of the games on here can do. So if we want to start this game, we just hit the 8 button. And if we wanted to, we can hit select and start at the same time, and we get into this separate menu. And so we have load states and save states. So for example, I've already saved this game, so I can go to the right and have a separate save state. So maybe a friend wants to play, they can have their own save on this as well. So they can save with the A button here. And if we wanted to load that game, it would be available in that option. And we can also quit to go back to the main menu. So for example, that is the MAME, or the multiple arcade selection, and my favorite is the Game Boy Advance, and I enjoy Pokemon Emerald. This is a classic. Used to play this on my phone and use that as an emulator, but now you can have it on a separate device right here. And so as you see, it's going to start up like normal, but I've played this before. So I can hit both of those buttons there, and I can go to the load state, and I can continue where my game was before. And so once I'm done with this game, I can go to the save option, hit A, and yes, I want to overwrite, and I can go back to the main menu. And there's also a lot more games and how you can view the rest of the list, because it says there are 762 options. You can hit the start option here, and it's going to give you a whole list. Now, these are not in alphabetical order. This is just whatever the people who set this up is probably the most popular games are going to be at the top of this list. So if we can go up from number 1, it's going to show us those games as well. There's 762, and here are just a few of these options. Game Boy Advance is going to be an option here, and if you want to get out of this, you don't want to pick any of these games, you just hit the select button there, and then we're back to the main menu where we just go up and down to pick what console we're looking for. Now let me show you Blade on the Game Boy Color, and I have played this before, so I can load this state. So for example, that is Blade from the Game Boy Color. We can save that again right here. There's also Game Boy, which we can play Tetris. Let's try that. Okay, so something interesting with this game, I'm trying to go down, and sometimes it wants to go left or right, so be careful about that with your games, because I promise you, I am not the best at Tetris, but I'm not that terrible. So anyways, that is Game Boy from those 4 options that they recommend there. We also have Mega Drive. So it can play Sonic as well. There's also Super Famicom, and something to note, I have tried playing Final Fantasy, and it's not number 4. This is actually number 3, and it plays not good at all. I've also played Kirby, and that was very slow as well. So out of those 2 games from these first 4, they run slower than they should. You can tell there's a bit of hiccups within the music because it doesn't display the frame rate. But you can also tell by the music if it isn't keeping up with the game. So Super Famicom for me is not going to be an option because it's running a little too slow. Now there's also Family Computer. We have Contra, so we're going to test that out. And as you can tell, I do not play Contra, but it runs that very well. And now when it comes to the user ROMs and settings, you can have favorites, you can have your history shown as well as search, but I do not recommend search because when you try to search for a game, it takes very long to load and you won't be able to get out of that as well. You're going to have to wait till it loads, which takes about 25 seconds to find all of those games that have that characters that you're looking for. And if you ever want to get out of one of these menus, you just hit the select button until you get to this menu again and you're on the home menu. And now we're back to the very beginning. So overall, who's this device for? Because this is a $20 emulator. This is a $20 handheld that gets the job done for what systems they have on here. Now, ultimately, I'm going to be enjoying Game Boy Advance. So if you want to play Game Boy Advance games and they have the games you want on here, this is probably a great option for you. This is going to be able to run those games, as well as Game Boy Color and Game Boy Mega Drive. Now, again, Super Famicom, it's not going to run very well, so keep in mind about that. But for $20, this is a great handheld, in my opinion, to get started on for retro gaming. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you on the next one.